Well, I've run across people I went to sea with after I was in college and went in the summertime. I ran into one or two of those fellas. But my wartime experience, I finally discovered one person that I had sailed this tanker, the SS York, around the world with. And he was in San Francisco, and he remembered me, and I remembered him. I think he was the chief mate. And we were going to get together at our Merchant Marine conference in 2 weeks. And by the time I got there, he had died. So I never did get to see him. So I located one of the fellows I went to sea with on my first trip. But I located his home to learn that he had died in the construction of the Alaska pipeline about 1970. So that was many years later. But I never got to talk to him again.
Now that you had heard about the war and you knew everything, but you were still in high school, how were you feeling about what was going on in Germany and what was going on in everywhere else in the world? How were you feeling about that?
Well, we were mostly affected by the Japanese, of course, because we're here on the Pacific coast, and we were affected by things that happened in the Pacific, except that, of course, our men who were in the service were fighting in Europe. We were, as you know, the war ended in Germany in about June, I believe, halfway through 1945, and that was a welcome thing because of the horrific killing and losses of American personnel and all of the other things that were going on. There was as you know, it was so close. When World War II started, Britain was just hanging on by a thread, and the Brits, we learned, years later, were very concerned that because the Japanese attacked us, which was what got us into the war, that maybe we wouldn't go into the European war. Well, the Germans took care of that for us. They declared war on us immediately, so of course we declared war again on them. And we were into the European war full bore. But prior to going into the war, we were helping the British hang on because we were their only lifeline. They were out of food, they were out of tools to fight the war. The Brits had lost so many aircraft fighting the Luftwaffe when they were bombing London and all the rest of the Isle, that they were exhausted. There was nothing left. So we lend-leased them, I think it was 50 destroyers, and we started building the Liberty ships. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, the Liberty ship was a copy of an 1894, I believe it was, somewhere in the 1890s, tramp steamer of a British design. We put a modern engine in it, and it became the really workhorse of World War II. To all the munitions and the rescue foods and all the rest, first to Great Britain, then after the war started for us. That ship, a lot of people credit that ship with saving the Brits and winning the war for us, because we couldn't fight any war without the tools of war, the tanks, the aircraft, all the rest. And they were hauled over on the old Liberty ship. Now the Liberty ship, I think, cost $1.5 million at that time to build, which is next to nothing. They decided that if it could last and make one trip, it would pay for itself. Well, of course, we still got a couple of them to this day, the old SS Jeremiah O'Brien and the John W. Brown on the East Coast, but most of the rest of them are gone. Some of them broke apart. They were welded, and they were all made by farmers and blacksmiths and women and everybody who poured into the shipbuilding areas from the Midwest and the farms to make the implements of war in the shipyards. And some of them were a little, maybe not as well made as they could have been, but most of them lasted very well, and then they improved them along the way. And they actually built one in 4 days and some odd hours in the Richmond shipyards here in California. Kaiser's son ran the shipyards in Richmond, and his son's friend ran the shipyards in Portland. They both made Liberty ships, and they competed against one another in these competitions to build them the quickest. And the one that was built in the shortest period of time, because they're all prefab and they were all in pieces ready to